There comes a moment in everyone's life when you realize you've been busy, but not productive. You've been moving, but not forward. You've been doing 1,000 things that didn't matter, while the few things that did remained undone. You wake up, scroll through your phone, chase every notification, answer every small demand that others place on your time, and at the end of the day, you feel exhausted, but strangely not fulfilled. Because busyness is not progress, and action does not equal direction. We live in a time when distraction has become the default. Every moment is a competition for your attention. Every second, the world is trying to pull you away from what truly matters. And in this storm of noise, the hardest thing you can do is to stop, to breathe, and to force yourself to do what is important only. It's not easy. It's not exciting. It's not always fun. But it's the only way to live a life that actually means something. Discipline isn't about punishing yourself. It's about protecting your purpose. It's the invisible bridge that connects who you are to who you could be. Every time you choose what's important over what's easy, you build that bridge a little stronger. And every time you give in to distraction, you tear a piece of it down. You see, success isn't built on intensity. It's built on consistency, on showing up for the important things every single day, even when you don't feel like it. You have to learn to push yourself, not toward burnout, but toward clarity. To push yourself to say no to what doesn't serve your highest purpose. To push yourself to focus even when your mind wants to wander. It's a quiet war, not against the world, but against your own impulses. You can't control how you feel every day, but you can control what you do despite those feelings. The truth is, discipline is freedom in disguise. Because when you have control over what you do, you gain control over who you become. Force yourself to do what is important, and you'll never live with the regret of wasted potential. The secret of a meaningful life is simple. It's hidden inside the things that are hardest to start. The workout you keep skipping, the project you keep postponing, the dream you keep waiting for the right time to begin. There is no right time. There's only now. And when you finally act, when you stop waiting for motivation and start acting from intention, everything changes. The noise quiets, the clutter clears. You begin to see what truly matters. Because forcing yourself to do what's important isn't about pressure, it's about priority. It's saying, I value my growth more than my comfort. I value my future more than my mood. I value my mission more than my distractions. When you do this, you step into a new version of yourself, the one who's no longer pulled in every direction, but guided by one. You begin to notice that the world around you doesn't slow down, but you do. You stop chasing everything and start choosing something. And slowly, peace returns. Not because life got easier, but because you finally decided what's worth your energy.
There will always be two voices inside you. One whispers comfort, and the other calls you to growth. The first says, rest, you've done enough. The second says, you're capable of more. And every day you stand between those two voices. The easy path is tempting because it feels safe. The important path is uncomfortable because it demands change. But comfort never built character, and avoiding what matters most only delays the person you could become. You don't need to force your body. You need to train your mind. Because the mind is like a wild horse. If you don't guide it, it will run wherever it pleases. It'll chase distractions, comfort, and every small pleasure it can find. But when you hold the reins, when you direct that energy toward what is meaningful, you begin to experience a quiet kind of power, the power of focus. Focus is not the absence of distraction. It's the ability to return to what matters again and again. It's not about doing more. It's about doing the right things, even when your mind screams for escape. When you start forcing yourself to do what's important, you'll feel resistance. That resistance is not weakness. It's the signal that you're right where you need to be. The brain resists what's hard because it wants to conserve energy. It wants shortcuts, comfort, familiarity. But growth exists only beyond that line. The moment you start doing what your mind doesn't want to do, you start becoming who your soul was meant to be. Every act of discipline is an act of self-respect. When you show up for what matters, you prove to yourself that your words carry weight. You stop breaking promises to yourself. The world changes when you realize that no one is coming to save you. No one is going to do the work for you. No one will care as much as you do about your dreams. This is why discipline is sacred. It's the language of self-belief. When you do what's important even when it's hard, you're telling yourself, I am capable. I am in control. I am becoming better. There's a quiet satisfaction that comes from doing the work that no one sees, from waking up early when no one asks you to, from practicing your craft in silence, from focusing on purpose while the world is distracted by noise. This isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. You're not trying to do everything right. You're trying to live right, to align your daily actions with your deepest intentions. Every time you make a small decision in favor of what matters, you shift your entire life by a degree. And 1 degree repeated daily can change your entire direction. You'll notice something beautiful happen once you start forcing yourself to focus on the important. The things that used to drain you, they lose power. The people who used to distract you, they fade away. The noise that once filled your mind, it becomes background silence. You begin to live from the inside out, not the outside in. When you focus on what truly matters, the world cannot manipulate you anymore. Your worth stops depending on other people's opinions. You no longer need validation. You become calm, steady, grounded. Because now you know where your energy goes and where it doesn't. There will still be hard days, days when you feel like giving up, days when nothing seems to move forward. But even then, remember, doing the important thing doesn't always feel good. It just always works. The results may not appear today or tomorrow, but every time you choose focus over comfort, you're planting a seed that your future self will thank you for. When you sit in silence to think instead of scrolling endlessly, you're doing what's important. When you move your body instead of hitting snooze, you're doing what's important. When you spend time with the people who truly matter, you're doing what's important. It's not about productivity. It's about purpose. Busyness is an addiction. Purpose is medicine. And once you've tasted that peace that comes from doing what's meaningful, you'll never want to go back to chaos again. You'll start noticing that everything in your life either supports your focus or steals it. Every decision, every routine, every person, they either lift your energy or drain it. And the moment you begin to protect that energy, you'll feel unstoppable. Because doing what's important isn't a task. It's a way of being. You start to move differently, speak differently, think differently. You start to glow from quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. You become someone who acts with intention, and intention is what separates those who drift from those who rise.
When you begin to live intentionally, something profound happens. You stop reacting, and you start responding. You stop chasing everything that glitters, and you start building something that lasts. The world tells you to hustle, to grind, to do more, but real progress often comes from doing less. Less of what doesn't matter, less of what drains you, less of what keeps you distracted.
The secret isn't in more effort, it's in more clarity. You don't need more time, you need fewer meaningless actions. Force yourself to do what matters, and your energy will multiply. Force yourself to focus on the few things that create real change, and your life will transform. The people who achieve mastery are not the ones who do everything. They're the ones who do the essential things with extraordinary consistency. They say no more than they say yes. They protect their time like a treasure. They build invisible walls around their attention. And they know the real enemy of focus isn't failure. It's distraction disguised as productivity. You can fill your day with small wins, tiny dopamine hits, tasks that make you feel busy and yet move nowhere. Or you can pick the one thing that scares you a little, challenges you deeply, and do that, even when your emotions resist. This is the difference between a life that feels busy and a life that feels purposeful. Doing what's important requires emotional discipline. You must train yourself to sit with discomfort, to resist the pull of instant pleasure, and stay with the process when the results aren't visible. The mind will try to escape. It will whisper, just take a break. Scroll for a few minutes, check your messages. But those few minutes cost you more than you realize. Every time you give in, you teach your mind that distraction is an option. You weaken your focus muscle. Discipline, then, is the art of saying no to what your emotions want right now, so you can say yes to what your soul truly needs later. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. It's like sharpening a blade. The more you resist dull comfort, the sharper your purpose becomes. To force yourself to do what's important, you need a clear why. Without it, discipline feels like punishment. But with it, discipline becomes devotion. You're not doing the hard thing to suffer, you're doing it because it's sacred, because it aligns with your higher vision. Every time you choose purpose over comfort, you prove that your future matters more than your mood. You prove that you can trust yourself. And that trust is what builds unstoppable momentum. You start to notice that the days you felt most alive weren't the days you rested endlessly, but the days you pushed yourself beyond laziness and did something important, even when it was difficult. There's a peace that only exists on the other side of effort. When you've done what needed to be done, the mind quiets. There's no guilt, no chaos, just stillness. This is what true self-respect feels like. Not pride in achievements, but pride in consistency. The world will keep offering you distractions. It will tell you that comfort is happiness. It will reward you for staying average. But deep down, you know that's not what you were built for. You weren't born to float. You were built to forge, to carve yourself into something greater through focus, through patience, through repetition. Doing what's important is rarely glamorous. It often happens in silence, without applause, without recognition. But the real reward isn't attention. It's evolution. You become unrecognizable to the person you once were, not because of sudden success, but because of quiet transformation. When you live this way, you stop asking, how do I stay motivated? And start saying, I'll do it because it must be done. Motivation is for beginners. Systems and discipline are for those who've seen the truth, that the path to greatness is paved with small, repeated acts of focus. You don't need to force yourself forever. Once the habit is born, the work becomes part of who you are. The hard thing becomes the normal thing. The uncomfortable becomes the expected. And what once required effort now flows naturally. This is how you build freedom, not by avoiding effort, but by mastering it.
Because once you can control yourself, nothing outside you can control you. You begin to see distractions for what they are, traps dressed as pleasure, and you begin to see purpose for what it is, the quiet path to peace. When you truly understand that, life becomes simple again.
You'll reach a point where you'll be tempted to stop. Not because you're tired, but because your mind will whisper, "It doesn't matter anymore." That voice is the quiet killer of every dream. The truth is, it does matter. Even when no one's watching, even when the progress feels invisible, even when you think no one cares. The important things rarely shout. They whisper. They wait. They test how much you're willing to stay consistent without reward. Life filters those who are interested from those who are committed in this way. To force yourself to do what's important means to honor the invisible, to keep showing up even when your mind demands proof. But proof comes later after the discipline. You can't wait to feel ready because readiness is a myth. You act first, and readiness arrives as a byproduct of action. You must teach yourself to separate feeling from doing. You can feel lazy but still work. You can feel scared but still move forward. You can feel uninspired but still show up for your mission. This is what strong people do. They don't obey their emotions, they guide them. When you learn to do what's important despite how you feel, you unlock an inner calm that most never experience. Because now your emotions no longer rule you, you rule them. Emotional discipline is the highest form of intelligence. It's not about suppressing feelings. It's about channeling them into something that serves your growth. When anger comes, turn it into drive. When fear appears, turn it into focus. When sadness visits, turn it into understanding. Nothing is wasted when you choose to use it. This is how powerful people think. They don't ask, "How do I feel?" They ask, "What must be done?" And then they do it, quietly, repeatedly, relentlessly. Doing what's important isn't glamorous. It's not loud or dramatic. It's quiet persistence. It's the silence of early mornings, the stillness of late nights, the unseen hours where greatness is shaped. If you want peace, you must earn it, not through comfort, but through alignment. Peace is what comes when your actions match your values, when your life reflects your priorities. You can't have peace and procrastination in the same life. You can't have clarity and chaos in the same mind. So choose. What kind of person do you want to be? The one who says, "Someday I'll change," or the one who wakes up and acts? Because the gap between knowing and doing is where most lives get lost. You already know what's important. You've always known. But knowledge without action is just potential energy, a promise that never becomes real. Every moment you delay, you tell yourself that your future can wait. And every time you delay long enough, your future forgets you. So begin, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect, even if it's slow. Do the thing that matters most today. And when tomorrow comes, do it again. Because life doesn't reward intensity, it rewards consistency. You can't sprint your way to peace. You have to walk, daily, intentionally, humbly. You'll notice that once you focus on what's truly important, everything else starts to fall away naturally. You no longer need to force yourself to say no, it becomes your instinct, because your priorities become clear. The things that once excited you now feel shallow. The people who once drained you now feel distant. The habits that once controlled you now lose their grip. You start to crave simplicity, not as a trend, but as a way of survival. You realize that complexity is a trap. Simplicity is power. Doing only what's important frees you from the noise. It gives your mind room to breathe. It lets your heart remember what truly matters. You stop chasing quantity and start nurturing quality. Quality in thoughts, quality in effort, quality in the moments you give your attention to. And somewhere in that simplicity, you rediscover yourself. You rediscover the person you were before the world filled your head with endless expectations. The gift of focus is this: it brings you back home to yourself. You realize that the purpose of discipline was never punishment, it was self-respect. And the purpose of doing what's important was never just achievement, it was alignment. You begin to live a different kind of life, one that feels quieter on the outside, but richer on the inside. You stop proving your worth. You start protecting your peace. And you truly understand that doing what is important isn't about success at all. It's about serenity.
There is a moment, often quiet and unnoticed, when you realize that discipline isn't about force anymore, it's about flow. You wake up and you no longer debate with yourself. You no longer bargain with comfort. You no longer waste energy on whether or not to do the important thing. You simply do it. This is the shift from effort to identity. At first, you had to push yourself. You had to fight laziness, distraction, emotion, temptation. But slowly, through repetition and intention, you've built something stronger. You've built momentum. And momentum is sacred. It carries you when motivation fails. It lifts you when energy fades. It moves you forward quietly, even when your own thoughts want to pull you back. This is the real reward of forcing yourself to do what matters. You build a self that doesn't need forcing anymore. The habits become your nature. The focus becomes your language. The effort becomes your peace. It's a paradox, and one most people miss. They think discipline is all about suffering. But real discipline brings freedom. Freedom from confusion, freedom from guilt, freedom from delay. Because when your actions are truly aligned with your purpose, you don't waste energy anymore on that internal conflict. There's no war between what you should do and what you want to do. They become the same thing. You wake up knowing what must be done, and you do it with a calm, quiet strength. The outside world might not notice the change immediately, but inside, you feel lighter. You feel focused. You feel peaceful. Because you've stopped scattering your energy everywhere. You've started investing it where it matters most. Every single time you choose focus over noise, you buy yourself a little more peace. Every time you choose consistency over chaos, you move closer to your purpose. And every time you choose what's important, you shape your identity a little more clearly. This journey is really about becoming the kind of person who does the right thing without needing to be pushed. It stops being about chasing success. It becomes about embodying meaning. Because when you live intentionally, success becomes a byproduct, not the pursuit. And this is when burnout begins to disappear. See, burnout isn't caused by hard work. It's caused by misaligned work. It's not the effort that exhausts you, it's the emptiness behind it. When you spend your days doing things that don't matter to you, you drain yourself. But when you pour yourself into what's meaningful, you get tired, yes, but it's a beautiful kind of tired. It's the fatigue of fulfillment. You go to bed knowing your time was well spent. You rest not to escape, but to recharge. And that is the balance. Discipline on one side and compassion on the other. You can't sustain focus by force alone. You must pair it with kindness. You have to rest when you've earned it. You must forgive yourself when you stumble. Discipline isn't about being hard on yourself. It's about being honest with yourself. Some days, honesty means pushing harder. Other days, it means pausing. Both are forms of strength when they are done with intention. Forcing yourself to do what's important doesn't mean becoming a machine. It means becoming awake. It means seeing clearly what matters and aligning your effort with it. Not out of guilt, but out of gratitude. Because to wake up each morning with the chance to grow, to create, to contribute, that in itself is a privilege. When you see your work as service, discipline becomes devotion. When you see your time as sacred, focus becomes natural. And when you see your life as a journey of meaning, every important task becomes an act of worship. This is how purpose and peace meet, not in some grand achievement, but in quiet consistency. You'll find that the more you simplify your life, the more depth it gains. You'll speak less, but your words will mean more. You'll do fewer things, but each one will echo louder. You'll stop rushing, because you'll finally be moving intentionally. What happens when you choose what's important only is you stop running in circles. You start walking in a direction. You begin to understand that mastery is not a finish line. It's a rhythm between effort and ease, between doing and being, between progress and peace. And when that rhythm becomes part of you, life begins to feel lighter. Not because the load is any smaller, but because your strength has grown. This is how you sustain your focus, not through force, but through faith. Faith that every small act of discipline adds up. Faith that every quiet effort matters. Faith that by doing what's important, only, you're already becoming who you were meant to be.
There comes a point in your journey when you look back and realize everything you were chasing was already inside you. The discipline, the strength, the clarity, they were never gifts from the outside world. They were muscles waiting to be awakened. You forced yourself in the beginning. You pushed, you fought, you struggled, and that struggle shaped you. Now you understand it was never about the goal. It was about who you became in the process. Every morning you showed up, you were carving your identity. Every time you resisted distraction, you were sharpening your mind. Every time you chose what mattered, you were building a foundation no one could see, but you could feel it. And that foundation is what carries you now. Not motivation, not emotion, but quiet integrity. You've learned something sacred, that fulfillment doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from doing the right things deeply, consistently, with heart. You've learned that you can't master time, but you can master attention. And wherever your attention goes, your life follows. When you choose to focus on what's important only, you're not just managing time, you're shaping destiny. Because the things you give your energy to, the habits you repeat, the values you protect, they define who you are becoming. You've stopped living by chance and started living by choice. And that's the real freedom. To live intentionally, to walk your own path, to stop being reactive to everything around you. Now, the world might still pull you with noise, urgency, endless temptation. But you've built a shield, awareness. Awareness that not every call deserves an answer. Not every opportunity is meant for you. Not every distraction is harmless. You protect your focus now like a sacred flame. Because you know, once you lose it, everything else dims. You've realized that saying no is not rejection. It's refinement. Every time you say no to what doesn't matter, you say yes to what truly does. And that's how greatness is built. Not through endless action, but through intentional action. The person who does 10 important things deeply will always outgrow the one who does 100 things shallowly. So, when the noise grows louder, when the world tells you to do more, to chase more, to prove more, remember this.
You don't need to do everything. You just need to do what matters most. And you already know what that is. It's the thing that aligns with your purpose, the work that adds meaning to your days, the effort that brings peace, not chaos. That's your compass. That's your calling. Follow it. Quietly, steadily, relentlessly. Because when you stay true to that inner direction, you'll notice something extraordinary. Life slows down. The noise fades, and what remains is clarity. Clarity brings peace. Peace brings power. And power, not the loud kind, but the calm, grounded kind, brings transformation. You no longer need to force yourself anymore. Because now discipline has turned into devotion. What once felt like struggle now feels like alignment. You've become the person who does what matters naturally. And that's when life starts to shift. You attract better things because you've become better inside. You find deeper peace because you've stopped chasing shallow wins. You begin to inspire others not by words, but by example. And one day, someone will look at you and ask, how do you stay so focused, so calm, so consistent? And you'll smile, because you'll know it wasn't magic. It wasn't motivation. It was simply this. You learn to do what's important only. You learn to protect your focus, to simplify your days, to give your best energy to what truly matters. A discipline like this is a lifestyle. It's peace in motion. And when you reach that place where effort and purpose walk together, you become unstoppable. You stop existing by accident. You start living with intention. And that's when you realize you've already won. Because the real victory is not in achieving more, but in becoming more. More focused, more grounded, more alive. So, as this journey ends, remember, you don't need to force everything in life. Just force yourself to do what's important until it becomes who you are. And once it does, everything else will fall into place. This is how peace is built. This is how purpose is lived. This is how you rise.